I'd like to make a few things clear concerning the previous video that I did several months ago called Confusions of Atheism. A lot of people have misinterpreted what I said, or else I haven't articulated myself properly, which is probably the latter. First of all, I have no animus towards traditional atheism, philosophical atheism, nor do I condemn it. I am, technically speaking, an atheist myself. That is, I don't believe in a personal God or gods. The confusions primarily I'm concerned with are confusions in regard to arguments against religion, particularly by the new atheists, that are not grounded in knowledge of the psychology of religion or the sociology of religion, the history of religion, and so on. The assumption seems to be, or they come from the point where, well, if you're a rational person, you're going to believe just as I believe, with the assumption that atheism is purely a rational position, that it has no other source or cause other than making a rational decision not to believe in God. It may not even be a decision, a logical consequence of examining the evidence. But there are other factors involved, and those have been well documented in many books by academicians who have impeccable credentials in the fields that I discussed earlier. I have a particular problem with new atheism in that it has, in many respects, devolved the philosophical atheist argument into a kind of elitist argument, that if you believe as we believe, you are the intellectual elite. And they state that all flat out in many cases. If you do not, you are inferior to us intellectually and worthy of not only condemnation but ridicule. In 3 different popular atheist websites, I search engine to words like idiot, imbecile, moron, so forth, and I found something like 4,000 of them, references. There are a number of books that concerning the sociology of religion and psychological dynamics and even economic dynamics of what drives religiosity. And I spent 2 years reading them. I'm retired, so I can do that sort of thing. Some of you have questioned all kinds of things that I've said, and I've tried to comment on them. Essentially, I decided I put it into a little book, kind of a book entitled New Atheism as a Cult of Intellect. That's what I see it devolving into. Many of you may not want to read that book, but it does have good bibliography, and I'll be happy to send you the bibliography alone if you want to take a look at some of those books. If you're really interested in the dynamics behind what makes a person religious and what's not. To put it bluntly, a great deal of it has to do with the relationship with your parents and their community, whether you're religious or an apostate. Both dynamics are in there. And also your economic situation, how secure you feel. The more secure you feel as far as your living conditions and economic conditions, etc., the less likely you are to be deeply religious. You might be culturally religious, but not actually religious. And the less you are secure, and particularly the more you rely on your community, the more likely you are to be religious or intensely religious. And this has all been well documented for a long time. So we're all affected by non-rational forces. And one of the things that amuses me when we talk about rationalism is that people, let's say Richard Dawkins, he's the quintessential rationalist, but he's been married 3 times. Obviously, in some areas of his life, he's not perfectly rational, and none of us are. We all have idiosyncrasies, etc., that point to making decisions that we have in the past as being driven by other than rational forces. And I understand the concern with religious fundamentalism, although it's overstated in regards to its effects on world affairs, except for just recently. And that is well documented as well, if you know where to look. But Nietzsche said, if you look long enough into the abyss looks back. And I think that's particularly true of the new atheist phenomenon, because they begin to sound like their antagonists. And the emotive energy is just as great as the fanaticism of their antagonists. So I hope it cleared a few things up, and welcome further comments. And in fact, I'm thinking of setting up a little message board thing where people that are not inclined to call each other idiots and imbeciles and morons can actually discuss some of these factors between this interesting phenomenon going on. In the meantime, we have a new year coming up, and coming up at different times depending upon whether you're Jewish, Chinese, or following the regular calendar. And I wish you all well, and hope that you have a healthy and prosperous new year. You will excuse some of the mistakes I make in typing and things. Unfortunately, I had something called a carcinoid cancer, which is an endocrine cancer. It really affects a lot of aspects of my life. I type, I may look at a thing and actually think that I've typed it correctly, and I haven't, and then I have attention deficit, so I don't go back and correct it. And it also makes me sometimes lose concentration. One of my big things is that we're not doing very well in science in regards to solving mental health issues, and that's a whole section of my book, and it's maybe I'll make a video on it if anyone's interested. But anyway, thank you for listening.